Welcome to the official Lakes International Comic Art Festival podcast. My name's Ian.
And my name's Nikki, bringing you the best in comics and graphic novels and updates from the festival.
Hello and welcome to episode 69 of the Lakes International Comic Art Festival podcast. My name is Ian.
And I'm Nikki, 69.
You are so...
Immature. Go on.
On today's episode...
Ooh.
On today's episode, we're going to do things a little bit differently. We'll get to that in a moment.
Yes.
We have our usual crew of reprobates on the show.
Oh, bless them.
Mike's on discussing Third World War by Pat Mills and Carlos Esquerra. I can never say his name.
No.
Rest in peace.
You sound like you're ordering something from La Comida.
And essentially, if it's still relevant today. We've also got... I'm just bringing up my post now to find exactly what people have sent me. Tom's reviewing The Junction by Norm Konyu. And also Pete has got a chat longer than our interview.
What a surprise.
Gustaffo Vargas, who we chatted to this year at the Lakes.
He's lovely.
Yeah, he just jumps upon and steals the limelight, does that, Pete?
He does, doesn't it? I think we're going to have to knock him down a peg or two.
How are we going to do that?
I would just lock him in a room. I don't know. I don't really want to do anything horrible to him.
And we have a lovely chat with Katriona Chapman
Yes.
from Avery Hill, as well as published author herself.
Yes.
And that's coming lately. And I said her name right there.
You did.
How embarrassing was that?
Very embarrassing.
I can't even say a standard British name.
No.
I'm rubbish.
Yes.
Absolutely useless.
Yes. But it's all right. We're
She's
used
fine.
to it by now.
She's fine.
69 episodes later. Nothing changes.
We've got no reviews this episode
No.
because we want to talk something different.
Yes.
We're going to talk Ghibli. The Lakes Festival, yes, it's a comic art festival, but it does do animation as well. So we thought let's bring a bit more of that in. And there's a reason for this.
Yes.
Because as we speak today...
We've checked. It's definitely there.
Yeah, what is it?
It's
Ghibli
Ghibli Day.
So Ghibli movies have been fairly hard to get hold of, realistically. Over certainly, maybe not as recent times.
I was going to say,
but
recently it's a lot easier, but it used to be quite hard. I suppose, what was it, about 5 years ago, 6 years ago now, Film 4 started doing a Ghibli season, so you'd be able to catch up on them there. But only the ones they decided to put on.
Yeah.
But otherwise, yeah, it was quite hard to get hold of.
And in DVDs, yes, they came out, but then they weren't always stocks, and also they were quite expensive, realistically.
Yep. And also, the first one I ever saw was Spirited Away. Because it got an Oscar, I got it in Blockbusters.
Okay.
And that was where I first found it. So we're talking, oh God, whenever it had won its Oscar, really. That's when I first saw a Ghibli.
And you don't know the dates here?
No.
Okay.
Why would I come prepared?
So let's go to basic level. If
Right.
nobody knows, which I'm sure they do, what Ghibli is,
Yep.
explain.
It's Japanese animation with a very beautiful storytelling, really.
It's
I
like
think.
yeah, it's like the Japanese Disney almost. It's
No! Stop
in the
right there!
sense-
No!
in the sense
Yes.
that there is no other big company producing the movies the way they do in Japan. There's lots of Japanese animation companies.
Yes.
But these seem to be the main brands, the main name.
Okay.
I'm not saying they're the same as Disney in that.
Right,
but in
I'm
the sense of-
calming down now.
Good.
It's okay.
So in that sense, yes, that is the case. But again, they're very different to a
Yes.
Disney movie.
Yes. Not everyone has to die in a family.
Um,
Of course, Great Five.
I was going to say,
Oh,
it's even worse. So you are a huge fan of Ghibli movies.
I am, so
Why?
much so I have them tattooed to me. Because they just give you that escapism, they give you beautiful storytelling, they give you beautiful music. There's a stillness to a Ghibli film which you can't get anywhere else. There's a sweetness to a Ghibli film. It doesn't pull its punches with if it's going to do anything sad. Thinking Grave Fireflies. But it has relevant storylines even today. They're timeless. They're timeless classics with beautiful animation. And also, if you're a real Ghibli fan, you can check out the Easter eggs in each film. So, I mean, you won't know this, darling, because you ain't. Even though I'm trying. But yeah, it's just, there's just something about it which makes me happy. They make me happy. I mean, Grave of Fireflies does not make me happy. But all the other ones, they're powerful. I mean, they had powerful women characters before it became popular. Do you know what I mean? They never... Yeah, the girls don't need rescuing in any of these. It's just beautiful. And I'm always thinking, My Neighbour Totoro, you had a bad day, stick that on and everything is happy. Everything is good, apart from the sad bit in the middle, which I cried the first time I saw it. But I'm fine now. I steel myself against the sad bit.
Because you know what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's going to be... I'm not going to say anything.
So, the reason we're discussing this, Netflix have now got the rights to show these UK, Europe, I think worldwide by Japan and America, I think, if I'm right.
Yeah, because America's got the rights. Someone else has got the distribution rights. That's
Yeah. So, over the next 3 months, we're going to be releasing all the movies bar Grave of Fireflies, I think.
Oh, that's been out on Netflix anyway. That was the only one you could watch on Netflix for ages.
There's obviously something, though, about that. There must be different right holders.
Maybe, but that was on there.
Okay, well, it's
because
not
I noticed that. No, but it was on there, or it was on Amazon. It was on one of them, and I always thought it was odd that one of them, was always trusted to be Grave of Fireflies. Goodbye, heart.
So they're coming out in batches. So what I want you to do is give a very brief description of each movie as I mention it in the best way you can.
Okay.
Very brief.
Right, I can do brief.
So the ones that have dropped today, 1st of February,
Yes.
2020. You've got Castle in the Sky.
Laputa, Castle in the Sky, brilliant story, fantasy, has quite a good comic element into it. Excuse me, I just moved the cat. So, boy meets girl falls from the sky, has a crystal, big robot, big island in the sky. Let's stop the baddies getting it. There you go.
Okay.
You said brief.
No, that's fine. My Neighbour Totoro.
My favourite one. So, young family move out into the sticks, basically. Dad and 2 kids, 2 girls. Mum's in hospital with... what's she got? TB, yes. So dad has to go and work in Tokyo. The kids go running around, meet Totoro, a spirit of the forest. Adventures happen.
And fun ensues.
Yeah, fun ensues. It's basically it. Basically, they look after the girls.
Kiki's Delivery Service.
Oh, lovely film. James's favourite, my son's. Young witch, they have to go away at 14 to become their full witchness. She goes to the city because that's where she wanted to go to, and how she grows up.
Only Yesterday.
Oh, only yesterday. See, this is one you've got to watch next, actually. So, 30-odd-year-old office worker. She always goes in the summer to help out at a farm. Basically, she goes back out there and she looks back at her life and her memories as she was growing up as to where she became now. And you have to wait right to the end to find out the happy ending.
Porco Rosso.
Oh, well, another one of my favourites. So,
how many favourites do you have?
I love them all. Yeah, there's some that are up there that you can just put on, and Porco Rosso is another one. So, Italy.
Italiano.
Italy. We've got the war going on, or the end of the war going on. It's the end, isn't it, really? We've got a fighter pilot. Basically, he's been cursed by himself to look like a pig because of how he acted. He's in love with a woman who looks after the cafe, and it's basically how he breaks his own curse that he's put on himself, and basically life with a lot of dogfights in it. Brilliant film.
Ocean Waves.
Ocean Waves. Well, I had to go and look up this one again because I know it, but it's quite a difficult one. This one is a very rare Ghibli film. It didn't come into this country for a long time. It's a coming-of-age story for some kids at school. That's all I'm going to leave it at because it's quite complicated.
Tales of Earthsea.
Tales of Earthsea, based on Ursula... I can't remember her surname. Books. So if you know that book, you know the film. So girl turns into a dragon.
Okay.
There you go. Could be a spoiler, that. I just thought that's probably a spoiler.
So that's the first batch.
If you've read the book, you're fine.
Yeah, that's the first batch. The next lot are 1st of March. Okay, let's do this.
Oh, good. You're going to make me do all of them?
Oh, yeah. We're going to do all of this.
Jesus, I'm having a meltdown. Yes.
My favourite so far.
Oh, okay.
And a film I watched very early on.
Right.
Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind.
Oh, Nausicaa. Brilliant. We're talking post-apocalyptic world, basically, aren't we? Or an alien world? I can never quite decide. So we have giant beasties, which, basically they're fighting against. You can't go into the woods because of the dust. Dust. So young girl who's basically... Is she a princess of that town? I don't know.
She is, yeah.
Yeah, princess. And how the... Oh, God, they're like a warring faction, aren't they? get involved and how I don't want to say saves the day, but saves the day.
Princess Mononoke.
You see, this is not one of my favourite ones, but I think I should go back to it.
Okay.
So we're talking again, we've got forest spirits, girl lives with spirit wolves, young guy who's got a curse on him, because basically industrialisation is happening, and it's chopping down the woods, and there's a curse going through, and it's a fight between the modern and the old.
My neighbours, the Yamadas.
See, this one is quite fun. Different animation style altogether. Short comic strips about family.
Okay. Spirited Away.
Oh, another one. Fantastic film. So young girl, young girl moving house with her family. She gets separated when they go through a tunnel. The mum and dad eat the food, which they shouldn't have. She ends up working in a bathhouse. It's excitement and adventure ensues. Brilliant dragon in it.
Cat Returns.
Love The Cat Returns.
I'm going to ask for your top 5 after this, but anyway.
Don't, because now I'm like, Another quite comic one. Different animation style again in some of it. Girl gets transported to the Cat Kingdom. Has to get out. There you go.
Ariete?
Oh, based on the Borrows.
Okay. The Tale of Princess Kaguya.
One I haven't seen all the way through.
Okay.
Because I lost my copy.
Right.
So it's a traditional Japanese folktale of a girl that grows in a piece of bamboo, I think. Is it bamboo? Anyway, yeah, and how that all happens. But again, a different art style altogether. So almost like My Neighbour Yamadas. Almost like that, with the simple in the middle of the screen animation. Very gentle watercolour.
And the last lot dropping on the 1st of April. You're doing well.
I'm not.
Don't balls it up. First one's Pompoko.
Pompoko, yay! All about environmental issues, to be fair, and the magic that is raccoons with scrotums.
Yes.
That's all I'm going to say.
Whisper of the Heart.
Whisper of the Heart, brilliant film. I always think you should watch this one before you watch Cat Returns, only because the model in Whisper of the Heart is the cat in the Cat Returns. But anyway... Just my own personal thing. Coming of age story again of a girl wanting to know where she wants to be in life, meeting a boy who knows what he wants to do in life, and then falling in love.
Howl's Moving Castle.
Love Howl's Moving Castle. Again, fantastic story. You got Sophie. She gets cursed by the evil witch of the west. Of the waste, sorry. And she ends up as an old lady, goes to Howl's Castle, where Howl is a very superficial young man. And the adventures and the love that brews there.
Ponyo.
Oh, I love Ponyo. So, daughter of the sea, as a little fish, she falls in love basically with a little boy on the surface, and then she just wants to be with him and wants to be his friend and be with him forever, and that causes a lot of problems within the sea and the area. But it's a beautiful little story. From Up on Poppy Hill. Oh, just got my copy of this as well. So again, we're back at school. It's a group of students trying to save their clubhouse. And then there's a family storyline entwined while these two fall in love with a little twist in it. Oh, we like a bit of twist. Yeah, it resolves itself. It's all fine, but you're like, oh no. The Wind Rises. The Wind Rises. Yes, I've only watched this one once, made me cry quite a lot. It's quite a sad one, I think. About a man who designs planes, wings. Yeah, meets a woman. They fall in love, but then she becomes very ill. And the last one that's been put up there, When Marnie Was There. Oh, this one destroyed the family. This one, based on the book. Fantastic book. So, young girl goes out. She feels like she's an outsider. She doesn't know where she fits in life. Goes to stay with an aunt after she has an asthma attack. This is in the film. Oh, does the book do the same? I don't know. I've read the book. And then she meets a young girl in a house. And then we have some time travel, ghosty type things going on. It's a beautiful, beautiful story. And take tissues. And so the one that is on there is Grave of Fireflies. While we're at it, give us a brief rundown of that one. It will make you cry. So we're talking war. 2 children who have to try and stay alive. After the war. I mean, it starts with the death of the eldest in the first scene. Mm-hmm. And then it goes back to the 2 children and how they ended up at this moment. And it's It's a must. I think every person should watch it because it would put you off war for life to see the trials and tribulations these two children go through and the absolute heartbreak, because it is, isn't it? You watched it, you blubbed. It's an absolute heartbreak of a film, but it's so powerful. I'm even tearing up thinking about it. It takes your heart out and it stamps on it, and then it stamps on it a bit more. It's an amazing film, but really do not watch it if you're feeling sad. I mean, brace yourself for that one.
And I suppose if you want to completely complete the current lot, The Red Turtle, even
oh
though
yes, we went to the cinema to say that.
Give us a brief last, because that's the latest release, isn't it?
Yeah, like I say, we went to the cinema to see that one. Not much words in that one, if I remember rightly. Beautiful music. Yeah, collaboration. So, guy is shipwrecked on an island, keeps trying to get away, but a big red turtle keeps, breaking up his stuff. So anyway, he pulls the turtle out eventually, turns it upside down and it dies. But in its place is a woman. And then how that all carries on into like a family thing, and the ending leading on to,
anyway.
Yeah, it's a weird one.
It's a bit odd, that one. Yeah,
it's a bit odd.
You can tell it's sort of a crossover. It's not just Ghibli. It's a French studio as well, isn't it? That's
I think the French influence really comes through on that one. Yeah. It's not one of my favourites, I must admit, but it's still worth a watch. I'm having trouble with the cat here.
So yeah, if you've not watched a Ghibli film, or
I'm not sure that's going to make people watch it. My little thing.
Well, why not?
I don't know.
Okay, so we're going to continue the questions.
I can't continue anywhere.
Out the way, Kat.
She's really in the way, and she's rubbing herself on my microphone.
So, if you were to introduce your child to these movies, which one would you choose?
How old's the kid?
The kid is 12 or under.
12 or under, Ponyo.
Ponyo?
Yep.
Okay.
Definitely.
If you were to introduce your partner to one of these movies...
Grave of Fireflies, watch them crumble.
So say you have an action-orientated male.
Right. Instantly, Porco Rosso came to mind.
Okay. A soppy female.
Oh, soppy female. Oh, Whisper of the Heart. Or
Obviously, these can be swapped around. You have soppy male.
Or only Yesterday. Or any of those type ones. Or... I mean, but then you could show your partner Spirited Away, and that would be quite fun. And that could be a soppy female moment. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. There you go.
Your mum and dad.
I'm just trying to think what I'd make them watch.
Radio silence.
Yeah, what's that? That's called Nikki thinking. Drastically what she'd show her mum and dad.
I mean, it depends on your mum and dad, obviously.
Probably Spirited Away, to be fair, or Howl's Moving Castle, because it's a bit easier to grasp. And they won't sit there going, well, it's a kids' film, isn't it? So, yeah, one of those two.
And if you were to choose your top three, what would they be?
Top one is My Neighbour Totoro, because I love that film so much. And
here we are on our countdown starting at the best one.
Well, it's easier for me to fill in the top one. Then Spirited Away. Third is a toss-up between Howl's Moving Castle and Porco Rosso.
Excellent. Now.
Please don't give me any more. I'm really, really crying inside now.
Dubbed?
Oh, I don't care. Do you know what? I couldn't give a monkey's. People get so prissy over this, don't they? They're like, oh, well, you could only ever watch it and get the true thing through the subtitles. I didn't give a monkey's. Whatever suits you. If you like the dubbed, then I watch the dubbed because it means you can look away and not know where, not lose where you are in it. I don't care. If it only came up subbed on the telly, I'd be quite happy. I don't see the point of getting on your high horse over if it's dubbed or subbed. If are you enjoying it, that's fine. Couldn't give a monkey's.
I think in some cases...
Don't give up.
No. In live action, it matters because it's really annoying watching the mouths move differently.
Yeah, okay, but on a cartoon...
Animation, it's different.
It's not as...
But the big thing to say about Ghibli movies is the voice talent they use when they dub them is generally of exceptionally high quality. They have a lot of Hollywood actors.
Yeah, they do a lot of Hollywood
doing
actors,
these, so it's not done cheaply. Mm-hmm. Like some things have done cheaply, and it does sound odd.
Yeah.
This is done with like a proper motion movie.
Yeah, but I watch because I watch a lot of Korean, Chinese, Japanese TV movies, TV series. And they will, especially the Chinese ones, will dub the Chinese with a different dialect of Chinese onto the actors and then give a subtitle. So, you're just totally lost anyway. So I don't care. Whatever floats your boat.
Okay.
You know what? If you only subs for you, then congratulations. Good luck. Don't care.
So how do you feel? I like this. I'm enjoying this. I'm interviewing Nikki, basically. How do you feel the current state of animation in the West compares to those on the Ghibli and Japanese side? And the reason I'm asking this is Netflix in particular. We've had Spider-Man,
yep,
for starters. I mean, that's wonderful. You've had Klaus, which has been produced for Netflix.
Yep.
How do you
We've got that other one, haven't we, to watch? The hand.
That's a French one, I think. Yeah. Is it Ni no Kuni? Obviously, that's Japanese. But how do you feel we're comparing these days in compared to the 90s?
We've got a long way to go there, haven't we, to catch up with the Japanese on animation, because they do animation for adults. That it's not just in our culture; it's primarily for kids, isn't it? It's only now with Netflix doing things like Castlevania and that kind of thing, we're actually saying, this is a reasonable art form. Well, reasonable. This is a valid art form for adults as well.
Do you not feel Ghibli is mainly for kids - family? There's not many Ghibli movies that are, you'd say, adult only.
Yeah, but they're not catering just for children, are they? And a lot of Japanese animation isn't catering. Like Your Name, that's not a kids' film.
Well, that's why I'm asking compared to now. So things like Klaus. It's a family film. It's not, It's not a kids' film. Spider-Man, I'd say, is more higher teen upwards. It's not designated for kids.
No, because that noise of the baddie in that
they've not made that film thinking this is for the kids.
Yeah.
They've made that film thinking the nerds are going to love this.
So that we're getting there, aren't we?
It's definitely improving.
And like you say, Castlevania, definitely not for children. But they can do more things with it now, can't they? And I think Netflix is helping the more adult.
They're definitely throwing money.
Yeah, at animation. I'm not saying it all will stick because,
because you had that weird short, I can't think what it's called now. That we've discussed in the past.
The Memories one.
So it seems.
The Robots one.
Yeah.
Yeah, Love, Death and Robots or something like that, wasn't it? That was brilliant. And that was definitely not a kids thing. So it's definitely going that way because there's been an underground of good animation for adults anyway. Because you can find them on YouTube, little shorts and stuff. But it's good to get it into the mainstream because it makes it more available.
I'm just continuing now. I'm looking at the top 30. So you've got Little Prince as well. French production.
I've got my little fox from Little Prince. That was brilliant. Also, most widely selling book in the world. There you go.
You got.
Or is it most translated book in the world? Anyway, it's one of them.
It's a popular book, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Caroline as well. Obviously, that's from a while back now.
That is from a while back.
Still.
That was a dark. That was a dark film, and it was brilliant.
Yeah.
I'm
going through.
Go on.
Right. I'm going to do something that's going to. Let's compare from Disney to Ghibli.
Oh God.
And the way Disney's evolved. Do you feel they've pulled anything from Ghibli movies in any way, in the sense that they have matured a little bit?
No, I think that's more pressure. I don't think it's from Ghibli. No.
Well,
though Ghibli loved Cars. The guy at top of Ghibli at the time loved Cars because he said that was a more mature.
Well, you got to think Pixar as a whole is more mature. The creators from Pixar, which obviously weren't originally Disney, have a much more mature thought process in the films, and they do create more serious films with a fun element. Behind them.
Yeah, I think Disney's got a long way to go. They're still stuck in their formula, aren't they? Kill a parent.
Well, they know what makes them money.
Kill a parent, make a princess. Sell the toys.
And if you were to then finally advance from Ghibli to other Japanese movies, is there any particular ones?
Oh, like Your Name.
Yeah.
Obviously we watched Fireworks, me and my bestie. We watched that. Completely weird. I've watched Penguin Highway as well. Completely weird. Why was rubbish turning into penguins? I don't know. What was the big bubble? Why did everything? Yeah. So there's definitely. But Your Name, that studio there, brilliant. They've got another one coming out.
Mary and the Witch's Flower was another one which wasn't as good as we wanted it to be.
No, we wanted it to be better, and it wasn't. But no, I think, Your Name, go and watch that. Definitely. If you haven't seen that one, you've got to watch that. And like I say, they've got another one coming out from the same studio as Your Name this year. The name's gone. It's about a girl that looks like she can control the weather.
Weathering something.
Weathering with You.
Maybe.
I think it's that. But anyway, that one's coming out this year for us lot. And I think that'd be brilliant to watch.
There's definitely, I mean, Ghibli sort of struggle because they haven't produced anything, even though they have got 2 movies coming out over the next few years.
Yes.
There's a lot more going into the cinema.
Yeah.
That's something we notice. There's definitely...
But we're quite lucky here because we get the Japanese Film Foundation coming out.
We do, but there's a lot of these newer films, generally they are jumping into the cinema at some point, even if it's not straight away. They are coming on, so there's a lot more chances to see
and like
this style.
The studio that's done Your Name has got, I think one of the lead animators from Ghibli went over to there to start, you know, they produce such an amazing quality of animator that, and they got Joe Hayashi doing the music, so I don't care.
Well, that's our brief rundown of the world of Ghibli.
Very brief. Fraser, no, someone said, they go, well, it's not about that at all. She knows nothing.
Just read Nikki's body and you'll know all the films. Tattoos.
I was going to say. Hello.
Right then, anything else you want to say on Ghibli?
No, I think I'm quite talked out now, thank you. Just watch them.
Right, enjoy these the other bits and bobs, and we'll come back to talk a little bit about the festival.
Yay!
Mike's Mutterings.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Mike's Mutterings. It's a cold and miserable January, and we've just got past the most depressing day of the year, Blue Monday, so maybe it's nice to cheer ourselves up a little bit. Well, that's Ian and Nikki's job, because this episode will be all about the global exploitation of the poor, all thanks to the much-anticipated reprint of Third World War by Rebellion Comics. The story of a silent war of Third World exploitation. Third World War came from the late 80s comic magazine Crisis, a more mature offshoot from 2000 AD, created in competition to titles such as Deadline and Revolver, both of which were flying the flag for British comics already. Where Deadline celebrated the youth culture of the time, mixing comics with indie music, Crisis had the political angle really, but both were aimed at a more mature intellectual crowd. These publications were a huge influence to me at the time and represented a golden age of British comic talent for me. 2000 AD editor Steve McManus pitched the idea of Crisis as a creator-owned collective, and it was the perfect vehicle for Pat Mills and artist Carlos Esquerra to launch the politically charged story Third World War. It became the primary story of the magazine, claiming every cover for itself. I've spoken about the many stories in Crisis before: The New Statesman, Troubled Souls, Sticky Fingers, True Faith, all classics and all packed with political and social issues and satire. While I do own the entire run of Crisis from 88 to 90, it still resides in my parents' loft 100 miles away. I've just not been able to get at it to retrieve it, and I've probably not read it for about 20 years now, so I've been desperate for a collected works of Third World War in particular. I even got the chance to actually push this with the man himself, the late great Carlos Esquerra, when he was at the Lakes Comic Art Festival a few years back. I vaguely remember that I didn't get to Ian in time when he interviewed Pat Mills for podcast episode 8, I think. Otherwise, Pat would have been similarly harassed to re-release as well. But before we discuss Third World War, I guess it would be good to think about the year that it was published in, and what the political backdrop was that Third World War was a reaction to. In 88, I was only 15, but it felt like politics invaded waking life for everyone, regardless of age, a bit like Brexit does today. The country was approaching a decade of Thatcherism. The Cold War was still frosty, Star Wars was now a defence system, and IRA bombings and shootings were a constant threat here in the UK and abroad. Lenny Henry visited Ethiopia for the first time ahead of the first Red Nose Day telethon. And Third World poverty was laid bare to everyone, really. Although the decade started with an all-time unemployment rate of about 3 million, it ended down at 1.6, though it definitely didn't feel like that in Wales or the North. In fact, poverty rose from 13% to over 22% across the 80s, just in time for the infamous poll tax to be introduced. Of course, all this political awareness could just be down to the fact that Spitting Image was on. The 80s was also all about privatisation and deregulation, thus showing in a new dawn and a rise in multinational companies and their reach across the globe. The Third World was at its most vulnerable, having amassed huge World Bank debt, when the US and the UK suddenly raised interest rates. And although they were doing it to fight inflation at home, it caused developing countries to go into a debt spiral, which they're still in to this day. So what about the Third World War story? Well, the story is set in 2000 AD, a world in which is in the grip of multinational companies. By 88, the multinationals own 90% of the global trade in oil, food and minerals, and by the 90s, the multinationals are finally forced to bear the cost of protecting their own assets in the Third World due to rising tensions and riots. And they do this by raising a privately sponsored army. As poverty increases and as countries are brought under the corporate yoke, the people push back and begin to riot and revolt more. Widespread civil disturbances are met by a new initiative from the prosperous First World. Multinationals fund the creation of Free Aid, the Free World Agency for International Development. Youth selection schemes are used to either entice or forcibly draft youth into service under the guise of it being a peacekeeper force rather than the private army it actually is. The story of Third World War centres on young graduate Eve, who is drafted to join this so-called Free Aid army. As she enjoys her last few nights of freedom, she eventually commits suicide. But this does not alter her fate. She still gets drafted, but the suicide attempt classes her as unstable and gets her a ticket to the Psychological Warfare Battalion, which is charged with winning the hearts and minds of locals, and is basically where the army dumps all such misfits and unstables. She's promptly dispatched to this new unit in an unnamed impoverished country in South America, and this is where we meet the rest of the team. And we get to see their tour of duty through Eve's eyes. So, principally we have Eve, young, black and liberal. Paul, her soon-to-be love interest, is a white British pagan earth worshipper with strong New Age idealism. Prim Trish is an ultra-conservative Christian who volunteered following her family's expulsion from South Africa. Whilst her views are polar opposite of Eve's, she never has any mean intentions and they both actually get on well. Ivan is a British nihilist punk. He just wants the world to end and get everything over with. And finally we have psycho redneck Gary, whose main motivation to kill people, as he put on his application form, earned him a place here rather than anywhere near firearms. Sergeant Brewster also makes appearances. He's their section leader who basically appears to give mission orders, toe the Free Aid line and be generally unpleasant. The first chapter is The Hamburger Lady. In it, their first mission is to move the populace of a village to the New Prosperity Zone, which resembles more of an internment camp. The sole reason, of course, being land grabbed by the multi-corporations. And the team have to try and persuade the villagers before they have to resort to violent methods. The mission has a very Vietnam War aesthetic, complete with Surf's Up and napalm references. But it's actually referencing contemporary forced movements of people in the world. Examples being in South Africa, India and South America in 88. Each chapter represents a new mission and a way to introduce the reader to a way that the fictitious multinational multi-food corporation is exploiting the Third World in a way that its similar real-life counterparts are in real life. The next chapter, The Cooler Cola Kid, quite an obvious reference there, shows a global food brand exploiting cheap labour, strong-arming unions, and fighting the ensuing civil war. Blood Money explains how dictators and governments get rich from World Bank loans, building up debt for their country and their populace that lasts for generations to come. Again, we see the team having to move people from barrios and win hearts and minds along the way. Next story is The Dance Macabre, which highlights the use of government-sponsored death squads to torture and kill to remove dissent, remembering, of course, that the governments themselves are sponsored by multinationals. It also explores exactly how we give aid and the problems that can cause. Throughout this drama, the team's lives unfold, with their stories progressing, revealing hidden agendas or secret pasts. The next arc is Made of Maize, where indigenous people are forced into growing cash crops rather than their usual traditional, and the dangerous pesticide use that comes with it. We have loss of tribal history and culture, the spectre of irradiated food, and a moral question of how far would you go to stop it all. The final arc deals with the tide of all-out revolution. The writing from Pat Mills is masterful. Some of the twists may be obvious a mile off, and some of the characters may fall foul of stereotype. But I feel that's okay, because they're there to just propel the story and the message forward. There is some solid research that's gone into this, and it injects real life into the stories. Just little details like the mentioning of how starving children eat wet newspaper cakes, and the look of the housing provided to the villagers have just more than a passing resemblance to real-life examples in the world. The artwork of Esquerra is amongst its best. Huge single bold panels of pure action remind me of his other favourite works. Judge Dredd's Apocalypse War probably comes to mind more. The perfect energy of Dredd hurtling through the air while stub gunning Dantana Junction. It's kind of that action that he's encapsulated into this as well. Seeing his artwork in full colour is just brilliant, and the whole thing feels like a labour of love. There is one chapter in the book that is drawn by Pat's then wife Angela Kincaid and Disraeli. Both artists I really like, and they get some really good storyline between them. But I have to admit, it feels like a jarring interruption to what really is the Carlos Esquerra show. Interestingly, the original artist was to be Ian Gibson, but he kind of pulled out over a difference around the premise of Eve's attempted suicide, I believe. I think nervousness around the subject and a potentially young audience. It's strange, but I can't imagine Gibson's style working for this, but only in the same way that I could never see Halo Jones drawn by Esquerra either. I guess the biggest question of all is Third World War relevant today? Okay, there are some definitely dated elements here, and I have to mention that mullet. Read it and you'll know what I mean immediately. Punk Ivan provides an excellent punk soundtrack throughout the action, which I refuse to admit is dated because it's just classic. Chosen specifically to plot points, you get the lyrics of Dead Kennedy's Chemical Warfare, a dose of Chumbawamba, and a Dying Fetus track that I don't think I can mention on air, and even a chorus from Napalm Death. Okay, so maybe a little dated. There are nods as well to conflicts long forgotten, and even the RPGs versus Satanism upset of the mid-80s. But the depressing truth is that Third World War is still relevant, and it really shouldn't be. Remember Coca-Cola? Well, into the new millennium, drinks factories have been blamed for depleting communities' water supplies, resulted in depleted water resources and crop failure for surrounding communities, even forcing them to have to move to other lands in order to get water. Governments like Mexico are even giving concessions to multinationals to exploit their own water resources. The story mentioned some occurrences of violence against trade unionists. Well, in the 90s, there were reports of torture in Turkey, rights denials in Nicaragua, even outright assassinations in Guatemala, all connected to multinational drinks factories. And always through third-party paramilitary or police action. If you want to learn more, then I suggest you go to the War on Want charity website. It is grim reading. The whole area of food politics, it just can't be more relevant right now, with genetically modified crops, chlorinated chicken. And the use of pesticides by third world farmers mentioned heavily in the story is still an ongoing problem. I think they mentioned the pesticide Parathion specifically, and both Parathion and DDT are globally banned for being highly toxic to human touch and handling, but are still used today by impoverished farmers. They risk life and limb just to get higher yields for poorly paid crops quotas that are given to them by multinationals. And the reoccurring theme of barrio clearing and displacements of populations, well, that may spark memories of the lead up to the Brazilian Olympics. There is one issue that was covered by Third World War, a little later on in the series actually, and that is the Nestle baby milk scandal. Basically, Nestle promotes their breast milk formula with heavy sponsorship in third world countries. The problem being that this heavy sponsorship promotes the use of formula instead of the more nutritious natural breast milk, and that's a bad thing in undernourished communities. Combining that with the fact that you have to make the formula using water, and there's the dangers of unsanitary water supplies. It's causing a greatened risk of infant death. And Nestle were a major magazine advertiser in 1988 and beyond, so you can imagine the situation that Crisis got into by reporting on this. There was a global boycott of Nestle products because of this that began in the 80s. And over 3 decades later, that boycott is still going on and is coordinated by the International Nestle Boycott Committee, which coordinate hundreds of groups across the world. In the UK, check out the Baby Milk Action group. It's a scandal and it's still ongoing. So yes, the message of Third World War is still relevant in my opinion, and that's kind of a depressing thought. There will be more books to come, and the personal stories of the characters really develop as it goes forward, and the political scope of the work widens too. There are also some great artists that are going to join the fray too, but no spoilers yet. It's a very unique and original take from Mills and Esquerra, and I hope others feel its relevance today as much as I do. This has been a party political broadcast on behalf of the human race. Till next time.
We have with us today Katriona Chapman. I've said that right, haven't I?
That's how it's spelled. It's pronounced Katrina, but don't worry because absolutely everybody says it that way.
Even simple names I can't get right.
Just none of them.
Yeah, mine's not simple, so please don't worry.
So you're the author of Follow Me In, and also you work for Avery Hill in marketing, is that right?
Yep, that's right.
Excellent. Right, we'll get to both of those shortly. First of all, where did your love of comics begin? Were you reading as a kid?
I did read a little bit as a kid. I read the Beano and stuff when I was little. Apart from that, I don't remember a lot of comics apart from... I read Asterix as well.
Okay.
And then just kind of like short newspaper comics and things. So I didn't read a lot of comics, and there was certainly a gap where I kind of finished reading those kind of kids comics and didn't really read anything until I was a teenager. And then a friend introduced me to sort of adult comics, and so I got back into it then. So
what sort of comics were they then?
Well, he introduced me to The Watchmen and stuff like that, all the classics. And also Hate by Peter Bagg. I don't know if you know Hate.
No.
That's a really long-running comic series that's been collected into some books now. It was, just individual single-issue comics that followed the lives of these characters over like the course of a few years, and I think he drew them over quite a long period, and it was just kind of these characters' lives. It was very kind of everyday stuff, so not really a lot of... I've never read a lot of superhero type comics. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I read V for Vendetta and The Watchmen at that point, and all those classic ones.
Excellent. That's the way to get into comics, isn't it? Let's be honest. Yes. So how did that lead on to you creating comics yourself? Was it something you jumped into, or did you do more illustration first?
I did do illustration first. I always had the idea I'd like to do comics, but I couldn't, even though I was always into drawing, I couldn't understand how a person could draw that much to make a comic.
Nikki's shaking her head here on the other side.
No, shaking, nodding.
Oh, you can relate to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would just look at, especially like a long graphic novel, and go, how on earth did a person make this? So I didn't really understand how that might be possible. So I did play around with drawing things, but they never came to anything. And I mostly, at a certain point where I needed to do something with my life, I thought I'll try and do illustration as a career. And I was trying to do children's books and things. I did a few years of that, but I never enjoyed it that much. And then I started to get more into comics again. And found that I enjoyed that a lot more. So that's the direction I went in.
So what didn't you enjoy about illustrating books?
Client work.
Okay.
I had some great experiences, but I was generally, even though I also had agents and things at certain points, but I was still not making a lot of money for the amount of work I was doing. Mm-hmm. It felt like I was just absolutely breaking my back and not getting a lot out of it. Very tight deadline jobs and fast turnaround, which I'm not the fastest. I don't have the fastest art style. And then you have the occasional nightmare client where you just think, your friends are saying to you, you're being paid to draw. That's amazing. And you're like, oh God, the reality of it is quite because you're going back and forth with difficult clients and things and trying to make them happy. And then, I got more into writing my own things and self-publishing things, because then I could just do whatever I wanted, basically.
Again, she's nodding.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you can relate to it.
Totally.
I just think it makes me sound really horrible, but
no.
So you moved into comics, and how did you start, or what did you start on there?
I started. A friend of mine, Amber Sue, had this idea of creating an anthology that celebrated pencil art. And so we came up with this anthology called Tiny Pencil. That was kind of her concept, but we got together to make it into a reality. And that just took off. It was really successful right from the start. It was all graphite art and different artists. We made a few issues of that. But because it kind of got successful, it became sort of a full-time job. So it was kind of stressful at the same time as being really exciting. But as part of that, I started to draw my first sort of comics to go into those anthologies. And then it kind of went from there. I think that's how Avery Hill came across me, because they saw the work we were doing on that anthology. And when I quit that particular project, they kind of asked if I wanted to join to help them out with their marketing, because they were, again, just two people like Amber and I were with this company that was kind of getting bigger, and they desperately needed some help with it.
So how long ago was that then? I'm just thinking, because we've only known Avery Hill ourselves, since we started the podcast, really. Yeah. It just feels like this huge company, but I'm guessing it probably isn't. It's probably a lot smaller than you realise.
Yeah, it probably is. I'm terrible with dates, but it's definitely been a good few years now that I've worked with them, maybe 4 or 5 or something.
Okay, blooming heck.
Yeah, but it's still, none of us kind of do it as a full-time thing. We're all kind of doing it on top of other jobs, so yeah, just doing our best to kind of keep it going.
Well, the branding certainly doesn't feel like that's how it's sort of run in the background. It does feel like this huge beast almost. So that's really interesting to hear, is that?
Yeah, that's quite good to hear as well from our point of view. We did at one point have a guy that came to meet us from the States. He's an organiser of a comic festival, and he was like, maybe I'll come to your office. And at that point, there was no office.
McDonald's, Costa Coffee.
Trying to suggest meeting in a coffee shop.
So one of the things you created as well was Cat Zine. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, I was inspired by a friend of mine, Katie Green, she wrote the graphic novel Lighter Than My Shadow. I don't know if you've read that.
No.
It's a really long graphic novel about her struggles with an eating disorder when she was younger. It's an amazing book, but she also, on top of that, she at one point was putting out these regular little zines called the Green Bean Zine. and they were really really lovely, really beautiful kind of little illustrated kind of art magazines almost, and different features. She would have kind of regular features and things in there. And I just really wanted to do my own version of that.
Okay.
So that's what I did.
No, it looks really cute, actually, I must admit. Nice work. But then we'll get to your art style in a moment. So let's just jump back to Avery Hill. What, for people who may, I mean, if they listen to this podcast and they don't know about Avery Hill, then they can jump as far as I'm concerned. But can you just tell us a bit of what the publisher stands for and what sort of books it publishes? Yeah,
we're quite big on sort of trying to bring up and coming kind of young comic artists to the fore and giving them a little step up to get their work more known. That seems to be something that they've been doing really well, especially with people like Tilly Walden, who was really young when they first found her work. And just kind of trying to encourage people who may have done a little bit of, we publish, it's all stuff that people write and illustrate themselves. So it's kind of people writing their own stories and illustrating them. And we kind of like finding people who are at that stage of their career where they've done a little bit of writing, but they maybe want to do their first long form kind of graphic novel or a short kind of graphic novel. We do a lot of fairly short graphic novels. And it's just kind of giving them a bit of a leg up so that they can get a nice book out that they can then kind of go on to do more work. And we're always happy if people go on to bigger publishers later, but we're just really interested in kind of getting these young voices out there and encouraging people at the start of their careers.
Yeah, well, they've got such a huge range of books. That's what surprised me, I think, early on, was the different styles and the different type of stories. It's not sort of one theme all the way through, so really enjoy the work that's coming out of Avery Hill, I must admit. And last year was amazing.
Yes.
Oh,
absolutely
good,
amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, they're all quite different and sometimes quite unusual, but I think that's another thing that it's mostly Ricky and Dave bring all of the projects on board, and it's just their kind of personal taste and their aesthetic taste, and the books that end up being published are just things that they have a personal connection to and think are interesting. So, yeah, they can be really, really different from each other, the books, but they're all kind of single creator. And I forgot to mention as well, they're not all young creators. Sometimes they're creators that have done other work, but and they can be quite successful in, like, say, editorial illustration or something, but they just haven't had a chance yet to have a graphic novel out.
And your role with marketing, what sort of challenges do you find in promoting comic books, particularly to the UK audience? Do you find getting put into certain bookshops can be an issue, or what sort of challenges do you face?
Yeah, it can be. Yeah, that's a good question because it is quite challenging. The UK market is quite small. I think that's one of our big challenges, and we've now got a distributor for North America and stuff, which is a much bigger market for comics. But yeah, it's just there's not a massive number of people in this country that read comics. And yeah, just trying to get these books in front of people that might like them is quite a struggle when people are not used to reading comics or kind of don't know what to make of comics. So there's always the hardcore kind of like comics fans go to Thought Bubble and stuff and buy everything. But it's just trying to reach outside that small market. I don't do so much of the dealing with shops anymore. We've got a guy, Steve Walsh, who used to work in Gosh Comics in Soho in London. He does that for us now. So he does all the reaching out to shops and things. But yeah, it can be tricky just trying to reach enough people. And because we all do it as a very part-time thing, yeah, it's just hard to fit everything in.
You just see it just selling, like Nikki selling independently. It's just a challenge, full stop, isn't it? It really is. It's like I say, just getting your message out there without spending absolute fortune is just such a challenge. Such a challenge. Do you find schools take interest? Do you work with schools at all? Or
we haven't done a great deal of that. It's something we've tried to get into, and we're quite interested in getting into libraries more and stuff. But there's a whole system. It seems to be there's a whole system in place where you have to kind of have quite a high profile already to make that kind of thing happen and to get in front of the buyers for libraries and things. We did a couple of little things with schools that were really nice. At one point when Tilly Walden had her second book? Yeah, I love this part. When that came out, we sent it to a group that was for LGBT young people, because it touched on those themes, and we had them kind of write back their responses to the book and stuff, and we posted those online. So we've done a little bit of things like that, but yeah, not much else.
No, as I say, it's challenging. It's challenging. Right, yeah. We're going to jump into our new little feature. Quick questions.
Okay.
Don't laugh. It's not that bad.
It could be.
It could be. Right.
It's you asking the questions.
So I've got 10 questions in front of me. I'm going to pick 5 random ones. And it's all, what was the last? So, first one. What was the last movie you saw at the cinema?
Oh, my God. Oh, okay. It was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Okay, one we've not seen.
No.
Damn it, I can't even talk about it.
It's very good.
What was the last comic you read?
Now that's a good question. I don't read a massive number outside of the Avery Hill books because they kind of dominate my time a lot of the time. But the one I really remember reading last year was Americana by Luke Healy. I don't know if you've seen that.
That's it. I've not read it, but I do know of it.
Right. Yeah, because we're both of us are quite into walking, like long distance walking and hiking and stuff. Yeah, it's kind of on that topic, and I thought it was brilliant. Really loved it.
Excellent.
So that's the last one I can remember.
What was the last board game you played?
Oh gosh, these are really difficult.
You see, some people are into the board games, and if you're not, then it might be Monopoly when you were 5.
Yeah, I've got friends that are quite into board games. The last one I played was Scrabble with my mum when she was visiting a couple of weeks ago.
Who won?
We played 2 games and we won 1 each.
Oh.
Yep.
What was the last TV series you finished watching in full?
Oh, goodness. I watch a lot of TV series. The last one that I finished watching, oh gosh. I'm even at the point now where I've started rewatching ones that I really love right from the start while I draw my book, so I can just have stuff on in the background. But I'm trying to think of the last one that I finished. Oh my God, I can't even think. I'm rewatching RuPaul's Drag Race at the moment from the beginning. So that's the one that sticks in my mind.
We've never watched that until the UK version.
Yeah.
And now we're in love with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a friend that's recently got into it as well, and she's obsessed.
It's amazing. So, yeah. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And the last one, this should be an easy one for you. What was the last holiday you went on?
Oh, probably the last holiday was Scotland. My mum lives up in the north of Scotland, so I go up there once a year to stay with her. That was nice. The last one.
We've never done Scotland, have we?
No.
We're so
close to it.
So close. Sit so far.
I feel like I should have been asking you, what was your last holiday?
Oh no, our last holiday was pretty damn awful, so we're not going to go into that.
I don't think we've recovered, have we?
Right, let's get on to more of your work then. Follow Me In. So that came out, was it last year?
2018.
18. For those who haven't really listened to our review, tell us a bit about the story of the book.
It's a travelogue, but hopefully it's also a few other things as well. Because I had this idea of I went on a trip around Mexico and Central America when I was quite young, 24 or 25, and I had always wanted to turn it into a book and write about it, but I wanted it to be really good, and so for years and years I didn't know how to do that. And then I kind of had this idea of doing a travelogue, but also putting in some really personal stuff that was happening at the time with my relationship. I was traveling with a boyfriend that I'm no longer with. And so I thought I would write that into the story so that it wasn't just kind of factual stuff about the place, or kind of really tedious travel stories of the slog it is going from one place to another. I wanted elements of that, but I thought by sort of combining the two, I might end up with something kind of more interesting. It
was definitely interesting.
It was brilliant.
Yeah. How was it pulling out those personal stories within the book? How did it feel as you were writing and, I suppose, drawing it as well?
It was all right. A lot of time had passed, so I kind of it wasn't traumatic really. There's always the worries when you write about real people about how they're going to react and things. So yeah, it was kind of odd writing about real people, but it was fine. I had kind of detailed diaries from that time that I could kind of look back on. Thank goodness, because otherwise I would have forgotten a lot.
Yeah, no, there's a lot in there.
Yes.
Definitely. Yeah. You see, we're now teaching on the edge. What was the reaction when it came out?
Pretty good, I think. Because I include my ex-partner at the start and the end of the book, and I've sent him a copy. I haven't heard any feedback. He still lives in that part of the world now.
Okay.
That trip around Central America and Mexico really affected us to the point where both of us have been back sort of many times since, and he kind of, as far as I know, is living out there. So I sent a copy to an address in London where he said I could send it, and I don't know whether he's forgotten it already, which is scary. But we did have that chat that I include in the book where he's a writer himself, and I hope that means that he kind of understands what I was trying to do with it and that sort of thing.
The bit I think we both loved was the factual panels about the places you visited. How did they come about, and was it always a plan to include those separate for the rest of the story?
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that you liked them, because some people that have read the book have said that they kind of skipped over those bits and just read the story part, which is fine. I kind of anticipated that some people might do that, and also I kind of thought some people might do that and then hopefully go back and read those bits later. But they're just kind of quite useful little breaks chapter breaks in the narrative, I think, in a way. So every time one little section kind of came to a natural conclusion, I thought, this is a good place to put in one of those. And some of it came out of just really wanting to write about the country, because I love Mexico so much. And there's a lot that people, especially I think Americans, have a lot of the time a little more of a grasp of Mexico, but over here people don't know a huge amount about it unless they've been. So yeah, there's lots of misconceptions and things, I think, about Mexico, and I wanted to kind of write about it, to just talk about the things that I loved seeing when I was there and the things that we discovered about it as we travelled.
Well, I definitely felt it brought you more into the country, or the parts of the country you explained in that particular time. And
I felt that having those little breaks where you put the factual parts in, it let the story actually sink in more, and I found it more powerful that way.
Oh, that's brilliant. Thank you.
It's also, and this is completely separate, it's a nice place where you can stop reading and then you can go back to it. It's a nice place to stop.
No, because I had to sit and read it all in once. So I can't put them down.
So how did you feel as you created? Do you feel your art developed and changed while you were doing a long form book like this? And also, how did it feel, considering you said earlier on about watching other people create long comics? How did you find that process?
It was tough drawing that many pages, but I had practiced drawing comics with Cat Zine. I did 8 issues of that, so I had practiced getting faster. I just had to work fast. I knew how much I had to get done kind of each week to get it done in time, so I would just kind of make myself work as fast as I could. It was really nice to do it in colour, actually, because I print Cat Zine myself and I fund it myself. I've always printed that in black and white with colour covers, but it was really nice to do a whole book in colour. That was the main difference to the stuff I've been doing before, I think.
Did you know it was going to be published beforehand? Was that always sort of a certainty, or? It
was, because I'd started working with Avery Hill, and I knew they were interested in it, and I'd actually met with Ricky from Avery Hill before they offered me the job, and I ended up working with them. We'd had a meeting about the book where I'd shown him a pitch for it, and he was giving me some feedback and stuff. So it was always kind of a possibility. And then he was just pretty certain he was going to go ahead with it. So we worked on that together. He was the editor for the book.
And was that the first time you worked with an editor as well then?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. How did you find that?
Really good. Really good, because I think it's just really important to have another set of eyes, someone whose opinion you kind of trust, to look at the work and kind of tell you where you might improve it. Especially because with comics, you end up getting, if you're drawing it as well as writing it, you get so caught up in every tiny little detail. And it can help to have someone who's got more of an overview of the whole story. So I think he filled that role really well. He would kind of remind me, like, oh, maybe this one section's too long, or maybe this, if you cut that down, you could expand this other bit. Because I was really caught up in the visuals and stuff, and maybe he was better at guiding me on the writing side of it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It does depend. You can get feedback from people that can just be plain wrong. You feel like you don't agree. So it's really important to find someone who you just kind of gel with for that.
That's interesting. So you're working on a new book at the minute?
Yeah.
And that's out this year, I think you said?
Yeah, that's out in October, I think.
Can you tell us anything about that?
Yeah, it's called Breakwater, and it is a fiction graphic novel. I've not really, even in my zine, I only did a few really, really short stories that were fiction, so this is quite a scary step. But I'm really enjoying drawing it. I'm working kind of crazy hours on it at the moment to try and get it done for the autumn, but I'm enjoying it. It's hard to say a lot about the story without spoilers, but it's kind of about people who are in a really low pressure, kind of laid back job, and it's kind of about the friendships that develop when you have that kind of job, where it's kind of everyone's a bit of a slacker and the job has lots of downtime, and you can kind of get quite close with people and the friendships that spring up. And it's set in Brighton.
It'd be nice to have a job like that.
It would be.
Yeah.
That'd be amazing.
I realise not everyone is.
Brilliant. So have you got any festivals or events planned this year that you're going to?
I've just started applying for some. I've applied for LCAF, which I didn't get into last year. And I'm about to apply for Thought Bubble. So, yeah, nothing that I'm definite on yet.
No, that's just opened up, hasn't it, Thought Bubble? That's
yes, it has, yeah.
Yeah.
Superb. And also, final thing, just want to go in. I noticed you do a vlog.
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you think that helps you connect with your audience? Does it help you feel, or is it more beneficial for yourself?
I don't know. I think anything where you can connect with potential readers of your work is good. It's just kind of a fun hobby for me at the moment, because I'm obsessed with like taking photos and filming stuff on my phone. I just thought it would be a nice outlet for me to put all that footage that I collect into something. But I have found it's really nice. I've met people who are into comics through that, and it can be nice. As much as you can kind of see on social media, sometimes it can be nice to see someone's work in a bit more detail, or to hear people, really talk about what they do. So I don't know. I'm just...
No, I completely agree. I think YouTube is such a useful tool that's not used, certainly by comic creators anyway, near enough. And I think just being able to get that visual element out there of your books
I personally love looking at people's vlogs and just seeing kind of where people live and, what it's like there, and all these little mundane details.
Yeah, and just getting to know
alongside their work as well.
Just getting to know those creators as well, because otherwise you just don't, do you? They're stuck in a room somewhere, right, beavering away. And you never get to know those people behind the story. So no, I think it's a brilliant idea.
Oh, great. Thank you.
So if people want to find out more about you, where can they go?
I've got a website. It's katrionachapman.com, and Katrina is spelled Katriona.
Or Katriona.
Katriona. And I'm on Twitter and Instagram. Katrina Chapman on Instagram and Kat Chapman on Twitter.
Super. Thank you so much for your time. We'll look forward to a new book later this year.
Oh, thank you very much.
ado, welcome to Breakdowns, the comic art section of the podcast. I'm Pete Taylor. I'm a small press comics creator and illustrator. Online, I trade as This Man, This Pete. This episode, I'm talking to a rising star in indie comics, the devilishly talented writer, artist, scroll lord, and cyberpunk supremo. It's Gustaffo Vargas. Hey!
I love that intro. It was beautiful. It was beautiful.
There you go. That's how we start. Flatter them into submission. But it's all, I mean, it's all true. I mean, last time we saw each other was Thought Bubble.
Yes.
But, we're in touch in online and various ways, and we're both getting ready for True Believers. This has been recorded, what are we on? The Tuesday before True Believers, so that's this coming 1st of Feb. So I think this episode is going to be released on that. So you all set for Troops? It's your first time as well, isn't it?
No. Actually, it's the second time.
Oh, right.
Yeah. I just did last year, and I loved it.
Right.
I think so. I'm all set up. I mean, I have to set up for Thursday. I should start with that. But I think because I don't have anything particularly new, and I think I kind of have an idea of what I'm going to take, so should be fine. I'm going to prepare some stuff on Friday evening. I think I should be fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
Well, you've got new books since you were there last year, haven't you? Really, I suppose.
Yeah. Yes.
Got Manu. So how did you start making comics?
How did I start making comics? You mean like the start, or like the UK start, or?
Let's go start.
Start. Well, I did comics. I was one of these kids that the artist from the classroom and that kind of thing. So yeah. I was the one because my dad used to be an illustrator, and he was then he worked in advertising, so he was a creative director, and we always had like pencils and pens and brushes and a lot of things, and he always was really, really keen on our creativity. So we were, the three of us, me and my two brothers, were drawing absolutely all the time. And the difference is that I never stopped drawing, right? Because usually people in some moment when you're 6, 10, 12, 14, you stop drawing.
Yeah.
I never stopped drawing, so I started doing I'm a really big Masters of the Universe fan, He-Man. So I did my Master of the Universe comics since I was, 10, 9, until I was like 14, maybe 15, something like that. Well, just spin-offs and just having fun. It was really like, I'm going to destroy you. And not a really big plot, but it was a lot of fun. And I think I stopped doing comics because I applied to the university and I studied fine arts on university. Right. And stupidly by me, but I thought it was I didn't have that much time enough. And in those times, comics weren't cool or interesting. They were a bit silly and only for kids. So yeah. I kept on reading my comics and all that, but I didn't do comics for a good while. Only I was drawing a lot and making some paintings and things like that. And I suppose I did like 2-3 short stories in the lapse of maybe 10 years, a bit more than that, which was basically nothing. And I remember, and just after that lapse, I was really thinking that I should go back to making comics and all that. And usually you when you're too lazy, you say, I'm thinking of, right?
Yeah,
I was not this person. Yeah, I'm thinking of doing. And I was thinking for at least 1 year, 2 years. And I remember there were two things that really got me back into comics really hard, because I was thinking that. And the first one was, I just checked my facts. In 2011, in the beginning of 2011, there was the first the first Lima Comic Con. I was living in Peru in those times, and Lima is the main city, the capital.
Mm.
And there were really a lot of big names, and I think me and most people that were there weren't ready for those big names. It was Jose Villarrubia, Fabio Moon, Gabriel Ba, Martin Canale, Eduardo Rizzo, and they were just there, right? Just there, and and they were just wandering on the halls, and you could imagine there would be like a group of 7 people just care after them. No, they were alone, and people wouldn't even know who they were.
Mm.
And you could know, you could be like, cool, so cool, right? And nothing else, not like, let's talk to them. And they all spoke Spanish. So there was not a language barrier. So there was no excuse. And Eduardo Rizzo explained a lot of his process and that. And I remember in some moment he was saying, so any questions? And somebody made a question like, is it too hard? No, well. And in some moment he was kind of getting a bit desperate. Come on, guys, this is a good opportunity. Make all the questions you want to make. And I don't know, people were or maybe too afraid or not really in the practice, so you don't get with questions because you're not really doing many things. And then when Gabriel Ba and Fabio Moon were talking about their process, and in some moment they started saying how they're doing their comics and part of their history. In some moment they asked, so who makes comics in this place? And everybody raised their hands, and I was really happy raising my hand. Yay! Okay, that's great, that's amazing. And I don't know, 90%, 95% of the place was of people were making comics on the panel. And he said, okay, who brought their comics? And we were like, let's say 60 people, and only like 2-3 hands rose up. And I think it was Gabriel Ba. I'm not sure who of them was that said that, but he was like, and why didn't you bring your comics? This is a Comic Con. This is a comic festival. Yeah. Where are you supposed to bring your comics if you make comics? And he was mad, but I was so mad at me, really, really mad. Like, I don't know. It was really shameful. I was like, you're so stupid. You should be just doing at least 1 page of comics. Almost a year passed after that, and I was still not mad enough at myself for not doing comics. And I went for the first time to Europe with my then girlfriend, now wife. And I went to one bande dessinée in Paris, one comic proper, a French comic library, and I just went crazy. And then I went to Belgium, also to the Cartoon Museum, and it was just too much. It was really a really nice shock. That was on April, June. By August, I was already publishing some comics online with a friend. I came back, and less than 2 weeks after that, I was working on comics. And basically, I've never stopped.
Will you still live in Peru then? Yeah. After the trip to Europe, you came back to Peru, was it? Yes,
yeah. I came back to Peru. I left Peru by the end of 2014.
So the first comics, I remember you telling me, I think we were talking comics in Thought Bubble.
Uh-huh.
And I named like 2 of my favorites. I think the first 2 I named were Eduardo Rizzo and Gabriel Ba. And you went, you told me that story. I was stood there open mouthed, in a room with, with those guys. Flipping heck. So when you went back and you started creating comics, what comics were they? Were they, anthologies, or were they?
I went back. I talked to a friend out of a conversation because I wanted to make comics, but the main thing that made me stop was I didn't try hard to have any original ideas.
Yeah.
So I always was thinking I really need a songwriter, somebody that at least is going to come with a good idea so I can draw it. So I was talking to this friend, and he had already an idea, and I just jumped onto it, and it was a story, a science fiction story of a guy that woke up one day and realized he had a black hole on his chest. And things started developing after that. It was a 5-issue story. We created the whole story, worked on the whole story, but I only got till all 2.5, and still waiting.
For the script.
The story is great, and the story is there. I just need to finish it, but it was 22, 24 issue comics, full color. So it took a lot of time. Yeah. But yeah, no, it was, I learned a lot with that. And while doing that, I started thinking of detail little by little. You think of, without realizing it, in your own ideas, and things start growing after that. So, just before leaving, so I suppose in June, July, I don't know exactly in what moment I had, because basically Trujillo's story came to me. I'm not sure if I was trying to come up with a story or anything like that, but it just came to me and stick with me. I could replay it, and because I never wrote it since the beginning, it was just on my head all the time. And the thing is, there was a small fanzine comic festival that was going to be on, I think, October. I was going to leave on December, and I had less than a month to create that. So I was, one of my best friends is a really good comic artist, and we came with the idea, maybe we should do a small anthology, A5, black and white, and put our stories. He had several. I had only this one, but it was a 2-a-long story, the Black Hole story. So I came up with 2-3 ideas. I had 2 ideas that I made into short stories, 2 4-page stories, and I made it really quick. It was really kind of rubbish drawing, but good enough to make it on time. And I was thinking maybe I could put this Trujillo story, but it was still too long. So I came up with a sequel, and I put the sequel on that one, which is like a 10, 11-page story. And we printed that all photocopy, black and white, old school magazine called Tacutinta. And that was just before I left Peru.
And that's, you work in traditional, so it's straight on the page, pencil.
Yes.
Yeah.
All ink, all paper, just scan, and all the letters will be on the computer, but all the art was basically paper.
I mean, was there how confident were you straight away with those stories? Was it something that came out and it was fully formed, or did you kind of? It sounds like it was quite an immediate thing. You know, sometimes those jobs come, don't they? And you've got to get something done for a certain project. So it sounds like it came out almost fully formed. Did you still tweak and?
Those the 2 short stories came out with a bit of effort.
Right.
But I think, I mean, your head is working all the time, even when you're drawing or anything like that, even if you don't realize it. So it looks like when I came up with this sequel story, which had a lot more of structure and little things here and there, I was quite surprised how, I don't know, it was basically all structure already. I was like, oh, okay. It was like
you'd lived with it long enough,
and connecting things. So actually came quite naturally, and it wasn't bad. I asked friends and that were going to be really honest with me, and they told me, no, it's not bad. It's really not bad, and I'm telling you this not because I'm a friend, just trying to be honest with you. So I was quite surprised that came out decently enough to be read. So that was the first really long story I did, and not the small ones that were a bit more like an anecdote, which are easier to make. And but basically that.
But that gave you the confidence, I suppose, to realize that you didn't have to rely on another writer. That first step of writing and drawing.
Exactly.
makes you realize that you can be the self-contained storyteller.
Yes, that made me. Yeah, you're absolutely right. That made me realize I can make, if I try harder and I think hard enough, I can come up with more stories, and I don't need writer in order to make stories. I can make them myself too. So yeah. You're right.
So what was the next stage after that?
The next stage, that was just before leaving Peru. My wife is German, so we got married and we stayed one year in Germany. And because I was studying the language and I still didn't know exactly what to do, I was kind of trying to freelance a bit, making some illustrations. I did little comic art, more like basically trying to keep up a bit with this black hole story, making some bits, but nothing original from me comic wise. And that was one whole year, a bit more than a year. And by 2000, that was all 2015. And by 2016, we moved to Leicester, UK. And I think I went to my first convention on May, maybe, on the Birmingham Comic Festival. And that was amazing again. That was really amazing because it's my people, my place, even though it's another language. It was like, and to see, I don't know, all kinds of people making comics, professionals and just really people being really enthusiastic and making small fanzines with not great drawings, but it doesn't matter. You want to tell your story. And that's amazing. That really put me on the engines again. I got the opportunity to make a couple of stories for anthologies with that comic festival, and I just started working on my comics a bit. But I was basically I did some things for Future Quake and for Accent UK. Accent UK were amazing. They gave me the first opportunity, first thing, and they were really nice. And until now, we have a lovely relationship. They're going to be on True Believers too with Dave West. And after I finished those anthologies, Dave West told me if I was keen on working on a graphic novel of an idea he had. And I took the graphic novel project that took a bit more than 2 years to make. But while I was doing this in 2017, I realized I really needed to make my first story, Trujillo. And that's what happened. I started working on the summer on that because I went for the first time to Thought Bubble 2016. Mm-hmm. And for a year, I didn't feel confident and I didn't have anything, right, to try to apply to Thought Bubble. But I said, maybe I can just take my copy and show it to people, show it to publishers. Yeah. Show it to experts and see if something happens, what people feel about my comic. At least I will take it. So that's what I did. The first time I printed Trujillo was to take it, just some copies to Thought Bubble. And reaction was quite good since the beginning, which feels nice, but it's always a bit surprising.
Yeah. Something that stayed in your head for so long. It's sometimes a relief, when it comes out, but then to get positive reactions as well, it's just super nice, isn't it? I know I was lucky enough happened this year with Silverbeard for me. There's a lot of trepidation, and sometimes it's something that's close to you and you've worked really hard on, and in the past you've done it and it's made barely a ripple and nobody's cared, and then there are other times you do it and people want it. So no, it's really it's a really nice surprise usually. Yeah, because you never know. You work so hard on a project that in some moment you lose the compass and you don't know if it's, and you have this, sometimes maybe this is worthless and this is really ugly and I don't know, because sometimes you make a drawing that's easier to spot when you're making just one drawing. Let's say you're really excited. Oh my God, this is amazing. I'm going to rock the universe. Laws are going to be changed because of this drawing. And the next day you see it and it's It's true.
Yeah.
I keep saying to the girls when my daughters both do art, and they'll obsess over something. I'll say the easiest way is just to walk away. Sometimes it can be just, go and have your tea, or sometimes leave it overnight and come in, and you will know instantly the next morning whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
I mean, my favourite drawings that I do are always when it looks like somebody else has drawn them. So it's kind of like, do you know what I mean? It's like, oh man, I really like that. I didn't, I suppose it's a bit like I didn't know I could do that. It was like, that actually looks like somebody else has drawn it.
But
somebody else I like.
Yeah, I didn't know. It's like, so was it me? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you write your scripts? Is it all in one go? I mean, well, obviously your initial idea, I'm taking, like you've said, comes over time, and little bits sort of click together, don't they? And you might get your overall sort of plot before you sit down. But are you able to write your scripts all in one go, or do you end up?
No, they change a lot. But the first thing is, after I come with the idea, first I work hard on wanting to have an idea, right? Mm-hmm. So what should it be? Sometimes I get a couple of elements and, okay, let's play with those, and then you start playing around. But it's basically a lot of, in my head, it plays a lot. It's a big thing over there. Once it's the plot, some details, and the plot is basically black and white, then I go to paper. It's never, right. I never make notes and things. Usually it's not that thing. So when it really wants to come out, then I put it on paper.
So you're developing your script alongside your layouts, are you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wait. Not really. No. Once I have the plot, I just write it. I basically make a plot. But I write a plot. I never write, because it's for me. I'm not going to write dialogue and scenes and that. So I come with a plot, and then I start breaking up with some really incredibly simple thumbnails that is basically to know the rhythm.
Yeah.
Not really what's happening, but the rhythm. Okay, 2 pages, 3 pages. Maybe I should put this one here and this one there. This is going to be fast. This is going to be more like a conversation, slow. And also to have an idea, okay, it's going to be 10 pages, 20, 40. What's going to happen? What's the best way to tell this story?
Yeah. What big scene do you want on a page turn, so that you've got that kind of, that's the one you want to be the surprise when people turn the page, things like that.
Exactly. Yeah, that's really important. That's I play a lot with that, and usually my thumbnails are, the first page it's a single, and page 2, 3, 4, 5 are always together, so I know what's going to happen when you really turn the page, or if you have a double page with something. But that's really important.
No, it's interesting, because I work the same way. There comes a point where I don't know if I get impatient, I think, when I'm writing, because you're kind of, as you're writing, you're seeing what you want it to look like in your head. So I think I sometimes just write a kind of page plan and put just a little indication of what action or what characters are going to be on that page, and then draw it all, and then go back to my page and kind of write ideas of dialogue. And so when do you letter? Do you letter?
I letter in the end, after everything. But I already wrote I already wrote the dialogue. Even if it's going to change just some bits, right? So yeah, I letter in the end. When everything's finished. But the dialogue is one of the things that it's one of the things I have to build up more and more and more, because in the beginning it's like those He-Man stories, like, hey, it's really, really, really basic. It's really, really bad, and I don't mind that much, because I know this is what they want to say. Then I will make it more decent, more, and I work, and I think I revise it at least 6-7 times until it finally feels like it's not bad, and then I keep on working.
That's amazing because I work the same way. I just put placeholder kind of dialogue in, but then you go back and try and make it. Obviously, I think, well, I want to put some character in this dialogue. I don't want it to read as if anyone can say those words. That I want that character to sound quite distinctive, and this character to sound quite distinctive, so that when you read them, even if you didn't see the pictures necessarily, or when you're putting their dialogue over something else that's happening, a different scene, hopefully you can work out who it is that's talking. But I do lots of revisions of the script when it gets to that point, just because you just sometimes have a different idea as you're drawing, or an expression can put a different sort of feeling to what someone's saying.
Yeah, because you create your actors, right? And your actor in some way is going to tell you know what, my character wouldn't say this. Doesn't make sense. Could make this kind of different approach. And even in the lettering stage, I change some bits because in the end, I read it and see it kind of something like a finished page, and you think, yeah, maybe. And usually it's taking more than putting. Usually it's less dialogue than more, because sometimes it's more effective not to put that much extra text. It's not necessary many times.
Yeah, it's interesting. So if essentially the final comic is the only place that real script exists. If you couldn't necessarily go back to a Word document, say you would, say when it's all assembled, you'd have a bit of the script you supply doesn't necessarily match, because that's what I find as well, because you're in charge of everything. When you're typing it up, or when you're doing your lettering, you'll change things, or you'll spot something, or you'll come up with an idea. So that is the only place that final script exists, is in that comic.
Because that's the funny thing with comics, because with comics, even if your script is completely done and never changes, that's not the finished thing. The same with the art. You make you can make, in my case, I work on paper in the finished ink, and then the finished, even if the finished color is there, it's not for that work. In the end, when you have the comics, everything together, that's the finished product you're going to have. So that's when it really comes alive, because everything sums up to making that page. So it's a bit, in a way, I don't know if it's incomplete, but a part of.
It's unique. It just exists there, isn't it? Yeah.
It's in service of.
So, are you still working traditionally on your books now?
Yeah. Actually, I came back. I was working digitally. Basically, after I left Peru, I started working digitally, but it was cheaper, and I was making something like posters and working a lot with color, so I went full digital. My first comic, Trujillo, was digital, and the small anthologies I was doing at the moment, it's the same digital. Even the graphic novel, even though I made the thumbnails were on paper, but all the was digital. And there was one short comic I did with the Marias guys, that is called Sicarian Rhythms, which was a lot of fun to draw with. It's dragons attack a small tavern and maidens get killed, and it has a lot of black humor. It was really fantastic, and I was already thinking on coming back to paper, so I said, okay, let's do it with this project, and that was 2018. I went back to paper, and it was really scary to go back to paper. I really wanted to do it, but because you're so used to the undo button that you're like, oh my god, no! And the thing also is I had a bit of issues with, I was thinking a page would be too precious of an object, so it has to be perfect, and I don't know, each panel has to be perfect, and you don't have to, I don't know, put any patch or cover up or anything like that. And then I realized, eventually I said, okay, this is the same. This is a part of the thing. This is not the finished thing. And nobody told you this is going to be perfect. You're going to scan it, and I don't know, if you really need to change something, you can be doing digitally. So I have like 2-3 panels I just put some paper on top with a new panel because it wasn't working. And that after it had to have to happen all that process for me to be a bit more comfortable. And after that, it was just comfortable. So that was Maria's, and then I did Lima, which was paper, and everything I've been doing since then. It's completely paper until the inking stage. Then all the colors come in the computer.
Right. So you're inking it on the paper, but then colouring it on computer. Yeah.
Yeah.
So have you got any outside influences? You know, I mean, the fact that it is, I mean, the last books you've been doing are, you know, science fiction, cyberpunk. Is that something that, you know, you've got a big passion for and you read and watch a lot, or is it just the way the story sort of took you?
Well, science fiction is, in general, is a genre I've always loved. I really like science fiction a lot. Although I don't like, especially movies and TV series, I'm not so keen on watching them because I don't know. There's a lot of things that most science fiction movies, for example, are really, I don't know, just an excuse to put some blasters and silly stories. So not a big fan of that. But in general, science fiction, I think is a very interesting tool because you can basically kind of play a bit with the prophet character. Like you can say this could happen. So everything turns to a monkey. So let's play with that. So and see how people react in reality. So that until I think only until now, it's most of my comics are not that far away from this time. It's not like 3,000 years and we're living in a far galaxy. Everything is a bit more related to what we have. So any criticism or anything that I see happening right now kind of brings up ideas that mix with this cyberpunk science fiction thing. And cyberpunk genre is also I also like a lot since the last maybe 10 years, something like that. I've been reading not a lot, but some books of William Gibson.
Oh, yeah.
When I was able to, because in the beginning I wasn't. When I was in Peru, it was really hard to get his books, and that kind of opened a door to just play. And I think another book that really spiked my creativity. There's a lot, but it's Brandon Graham. What's his name? Brandon Graham? No, I think no, wait. Who did? Yes, Brandon Graham's King City.
Right.
Which it's really playful, but my comics are not, my characters in my universe is not that playful, but still that playfulness gave me a lot of options to, okay, I can really play with things and see if I can make those happen. Like, let's make a monkey speak and see if I can make it work.
Totally.
Make it work in this universe, right? If that could really happen. Not that until a limit, but I have my own rule and my own setup of things. Usually when I build up, make world building, usually I suppose you've done the same. You have a lot more, and your comic is like 3 pages of a huge development and investigation you've been making that nobody will see, but it's there to hold the universe.
Yeah, totally. I mean, the world building in your books is absolutely fantastic. It feels like a unique place, but it's obviously got that base in reality, like you were talking about. You've got a layer on top, so it feels like things have developed, across a certain way in this world. Technology has taken a certain turn and been embraced, I suppose, and incorporated into the world in a really unique way. It's amazing. I mean, it's so fearless as well, in the sense that I can't think of anything scarier to draw than, mechanical items, quite frankly. Personally speaking, the idea of drawing, robotic parts and, robotic steeds and, vehicles, all that kind of business. I mean, it's partly why I chose a fantasy setting for mine, so I could basically cheat. I'd much rather draw. I mean, even, I don't particularly like drawing horses, but I'd rather draw a horse than a mechanical horse. Do you know what I mean?
Wow. Yeah, nobody likes drawing horses, even the people that are really great at doing horses, I think.
But you're like, I'll draw a mechanical horse. That's one stage worse than a horse. I mean, for me, completely fearless.
Definitely. Yeah. The thing is, my mechanical things are really organic.
Yeah.
And one of the things
true.
I don't know if people really enjoy it more than if it was a bit more mechanical, but that's how it comes out, because it's, in a way, it's a bit easier for me to make it. And you don't have to be exactly as accurate as the last panel. So the design is a bit more like bubbly or a bit more round or a bit more squarish. I don't know. Let's see how it comes. So I think that's one of the reasons. Usually your style is the sum of your defects and what you cannot accomplish. So that's what your style is. So I played in that way. And the other thing I do sometimes is, for example, crowds. For example, nobody likes doing crowds, and I've never done like a really high shot with that many faces. But still, sometimes if the story, in Lim, I did a crowd that's basically coming to you, so you don't see that many people, but you feel like there's still a lot of people, or buildings. I think I kind of accomplished that, but still the story needed that. So basically I try to really be faithful and respect the story. So if in some moment I come up with a story that I need to draw like 100 people in each page, I will have to, because that's respecting the story. It's not, you're telling a story. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you can't hide in certain places. I suppose that's where you've got the two sides of your creating. You've got your writer and you've got your artist, and different points. There's one of them that's telling the other one, like the artist go, no way, mate, I'm not drawing that. Come up with something else. And then you've got the other time where, the writer's like, no, I'm sorry, mate. There's no way out of this. You've got to draw it. It's like, okay. So you've got
That's definitely true. When I plot, I never think of that much of visuals. Mm. So I put everything there. And once I'm starting to make these really small thumbnails, and then I go to the next stage where I have bigger thumbnails, where I really can draw really sticky figures, but I know what's going to happen. That's when I realize, oh, come on. I really realize what's being written there and what's going to take me to make it work. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, I'll tell you what, I mean, I love going into process like that. That's fantastic. So let's give people an idea of what your taste in comics is. It's a nice way to end. So Earth is dying, but you've won a spot on the space ark leaving Earth. Which three books or which three comics or comic series do you take? These will be the last comic books in the universe. Nobody else has taken any on the space ark. You're prime nerd. You have to build the space ark library, but it's space.
Okay, this might change a bit like the weather, but you never know.
Oh yeah, no, just.
It sounds like a series.
You can choose whatever you like. It could be graphic novels, single issues, entire series.
I could take Ama from Frederick Peters. I don't know if you know it.
No.
It's really amazing science fiction. I think he's Swiss, and he publishes more of his stuff in France and in French. I think he won like 3-4 times Angoulême prize for his comic Ama. It's the thing is, when you read his stuff, his comics, it's such amazing concepts and such amazing art that you're pretty sure this is a brilliant writer, and he chose an amazing artist, and it's the same guy. It's just too good. He's amazing. Frederick, maybe you know him for Peters. I don't know, Frederick Peters.
And how do you spell the title?
AAMA.
AAMA. Cool.
Yeah.
I'm gonna look that one up.
It's an amazing. And anything that he does, because he does several things. Then that's a bit, because I've known his works for the last 3 years, something like that, so it's still a bit new. I could take The Last Hellboy in Hell from Mignola.
Now you're talking.
Yes. No, Mignola it's actually, when I first met his work, I knew a bit, I've seen a bit, but I really didn't read it because there were no Mignola comics in Peru. I'm talking, I don't know, in some moment in the 2000s, you couldn't find. Now you find a lot of comics, but in those times was still really hard to find those comics. So the first time I saw a book, I was really amazed by the graphics, because his art can be quite abstract in a way. You can really put it into really simple shapes, and how he plays with composition was really blew my mind. But it was a comic from a friend that bought it somewhere in USA. So the next time a really good friend of mine went to Argentina, I told her, please pick up any kind of comics you can. And she brought a couple of Mignola anthologies, and I wasn't expecting his storytelling, his whole world to be so rich and to be. I don't know. I think I had the prejudice that horror stories and spooky stories and this kind of mystery wouldn't have that much of a heart beating inside. Yeah. That much drama inside. And it really blew my brains out. It was just amazing. And since then, I've been a big fan. And the only thing that has changed is his artwork and storytelling is getting even better. So when I read Hellboy from Hell, I was like, wow. So that's cool. And the third one, that's going to be, I think I will take, I think I mentioned to you this before. There's one of my first love in comics came from a comic called Marco Mono, which is something like Marco Polo, because money is money. It's a character it's an Argentinian character from the end of the 70s, beginning of the 80s, I think. The artist is Enrique Breccia. It's the son of Alberto Breccia, and the writer is Carlos Trillo. And it's an amazing book. It's basically short stories put together in a small anthology. And it's the first time I read it, I couldn't get it. I was just fascinated by it. And afterwards, when I could get it, because I was like 10 years old, 9 years old, something like that, I started reading his bits. And I was like, wow, this is amazing, because it was really sarcastic. It was a view on humanity and how we behave. So there was a lot of things in between that I couldn't get. I was just fascinated by the art, but when I read it, it's one of the most amazing books I've read. It's really good. Carlos Trillo is one of my favorite writers.
Brilliant. Oh, that's what a list. Nice one. So there's stuff you know, but then stuff to look up there. Fantastic. Listen, mate, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you. Do you want to throw out your social media details and shop?
Yeah. I think if you just look my first name, it's going to be easier, because it's Gustaffo, which is Gustaffo, and just put comics or art. There's not that many I made sure of that. That's the main thing where I put Gustaffo. Because you look my full name and you will find loads of people. It's not a strange name and my last name the same, but Gustaffo with double F is just. So
They'll
I'm.
find you. So you're on Twitter, Instagram, the usual places?
Yeah, and Facebook, all the usual places. Yeah.
Brilliant. Oh, listen, mate, can't wait to meet up on the weekend.
Definitely.
Brilliant. Awesome. Thanks a lot. Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers. Bye-bye.
One quick Kickstarter plug before I go. Adam Falp and Tony Esmond have just launched a cracking book called Atomic Hercules. The pitch is thus. The year 2184. Earth is no more than a brown and grey desert of mutants, robot armies, and a single drunken demigod named Hercules. Go and check it out. It's going to be awesome. Search Adam Falp or Atomic Hercules on Kickstarter. Thanks for listening. You can find me at This Man This Pete on Instagram and Twitter, or contact me and find links to my comics at thismanthispete.com.
Hello and welcome to Small Pressed with me, Tom Stewart from That Comic Smell podcast. How is everybody doing? Hope you are all well. I'm here today to talk about an absolutely wonderful comic that is going to be coming up very, very soon, called The Junction by Norm Konyu. I was actually sent this on by Norm. I really didn't know what to expect to start off with, to be honest. I'd seen visuals of this kicking about on Twitter and Instagram, and I'd seen the little kid that was on the bike, and it's a really interesting visual, a really, really nice sort of artistic style. It kind of reminded me of like old Tim Schafer computer games, like the LucasArts kind of stuff, or the Double Fine kind of stuff, like Psychonauts or Costume Quest or something along those lines. But I'm really into that sort of unique styles, and it's surely one of the most unique comics that I've read in quite a while. When I read this book, like I say, I didn't know what to expect, and it was utterly stunning. I could not stop reading this thing. I don't want to give too much away about it, because it's one of those books that has details and stuff that if I say something here, it'll give away a lot of the plot and whatnot. So I'll give you the synopsis is: Lucas has come home 12 years after disappearing, silent, haunted, and still 11 years old. I mean, it's a really nice synopsis. It's such an interesting comic. When I saw the visuals for this, I genuinely was expecting something that was about like 40-50 pages or something like that. It's like 160 pages. It's a big one-off graphic novel. Now, I've never heard of Norm Konyu before. I hope I'm saying that right. I spoke to him briefly at Thought Bubble whilst both of us were waiting to get covers signed by Lucy Sullivan, and at the time he gave me a business card with the little boy on the bike on it. When you don't know a creator and you don't know their work and you've only got one little visual to go on, I'll be honest, you can have a slight bit of trepidation going into it. I really shouldn't have. This is just utterly stunning. So Lucas comes back to his hometown of Medford County, Lucas Jones. It opens with a transcript of an interview. He's being interviewed by the police. Do you know what? It's just, he kind of had me from the first kind of 5 pages. It's the interview with the police. There's a wee bit of a transcript, and then it cuts to a wee bit of CCTV footage, and the people standing behind the glass, and the detective interviewing him, and Lucas is sitting with his aunt and uncle, and they're trying to figure out what's going on. How is this little boy still 11 years old, even though he went missing 12 years ago? And the cops presenting him with these pictures and saying, this doesn't make any sense, blah, blah, blah. And then, just before it kind of gets into the meat of the story, the return of Lucas Jones on June 1996, the detective hands him a photo well, hands him 2 photos. I'll read out the bit. It's the detective is speaking to Lucas, and he says, 2 photos of you, one taken just before you disappeared, and there's a wee bit underneath saying Lucas Jones, September 1984, and the other taken this evening, scrawled on on a separate Polaroid, June 12th, 1996, and they are wearing the exact same clothes, the exact same picture, just different background. He says, all I want to know in the next panel, all the gentlemen on the other side of the glass want to know is, how have you not aged a single day in 12 years? And it's just, there's just a panel at the bottom with like a kind of wash watercolour orange, and Lucas's face, and with his very sallow blue eye and the single tear, he just says, I'm the oldest boy in the world. And it just gets into it from there. Honestly, it's like a total cold opening and then straight into the story. There is bits of flashback throughout it. There's so many different techniques and different little bits that are used throughout it. Like there's reports and stuff that are almost used as separate panels. So like dental reports and itineraries that are put out. There's whole sections, like the book is split up into different sections, like almost different chapters, with these 1-page lovely beautiful art pieces that kind of lay out the whole story of what's to come. Almost it'll maybe just be like a little excerpt or something, but like I say, you've got that first one that says the return of Lucas Jones, and then you've got like the well and all this kind of stuff. But they're all like these single pages. But my God, there is some beautiful pages in this. There's proper watercoloured, well, what looks like sort of watercoloured wash double spread splash pages with cities, and it's all very neat. Everything's tidy. Everything's got, but there's no solid lines. There's no solid lines to any of this. Everything is just the colour. There's no black outline to anything, and some of the panels are painted less like straight edges and more just like they've been kind of filled in quite quickly around the outsides, leaving the brush marks. It's such an interesting book, and great use of like massive negative spaces with light coming in, and I'm completely blown away by this entirely. And Norm is actually kickstarting the Junction on March the 4th, but this book is done. It's finished. It's completely done. So I'm assuming he's just kickstarting for like extra rewards and to give to people and to get the print run done effectively. I would love to see this in print. Seeing this in digital so far has been absolutely stunning. You need to go and check it out. Go and check out the Twitter page that's dedicated for it, at Junction Novel, JUNCTIONNOVEL. There's also a website, junctiongraphicnovel.com, and that'll give you everything. There's like a trailer, a graphic novel teaser, there's a synopsis, a blog about the author, all that kind of stuff, and then you can find like the Facebook page, the Instagram, the Twitter. You can get in touch with Norm on there as well. But the minute you open up the website, you'll see the visual that I was talking about, the boy on the bike. It's just utterly stunning. But there's like a pre-launch page up and stuff on Kickstarter as well, the Junction graphic novel. I highly recommend you go and check this out. I read this because it's got an 80s, 90s nostalgic vibe about it, very much in keeping with the current trend of like the Stranger Things and whatnot. Although people say that, and then you hear, oh, Stranger Things, oh god, it's going to be compared to that. I wouldn't compare it to it in any way, shape or form, just literally because it's got that feel of that time, nothing else. No, I wouldn't compare it to that in the slightest. It's its own thing entirely. It's absolutely beautiful. But I listened with like a 80s synth horror soundtrack on the back, and that, I think that actually enhanced it quite a lot as well. I started off reading it silently, but it's almost like I could hear the soundtrack going in my head, and thought, no, I'm going to listen to this with like sort of synth, eerie 80s horror vibe behind it. But he really does play with the pages in this and give you a lot of different techniques and styles, and this drawing style that Norm's got is just absolutely beautiful. I'm assuming it's all digital because it looks absolutely perfect. like utterly perfect. And you'll see what I mean about it having a sort of computer game point and click adventure sort of vibe to it. But it's just utterly gorgeous. Absolutely loved it. So intriguing, a complete page turner. You would be absolutely mad to miss out on the Junction. And that's it for the review in small press this time. I want to tell you about a couple of Kickstarters that are going at the minute though. Alan Henderson's Penned Gwyn is still going at the minute. Penned Gwyn presents Vision, all new 2020 collection. Still going at the minute. It's already smashed its target, but get in there, make sure that you get yourself a copy. It's got 10 days to go at the moment of time of recording, so it'll probably be about 8 or 9 by the time this goes out. But give that a look. Also, Rick Jackson has his 4th instalment of Heads Spiral of Lies is on Kickstarter just now. That's already went past its goal as well. Rick wasn't asking for much on that in the slightest, but make sure and get on there. It's only got 8 days to go at time of recording, so it'll be just under a week. Make sure and get on there, get a copy of that. Heads is a great series. That's got a lot of intrigue about it, a lot of mystery, and it's wacky and funny. It's really good. Really enjoy that. Rick's a top bloke as well, and has such a unique style about him and all. Well worth it. Also, Adam Falp and Tony Esmond have Atomic Hercules issue 1. That's just went up on Kickstarter in the past couple of days, so it's got 27 days to go just now at time of recording. It's just a little away from its target now. I'm sure that'll hit that. Adam's got a good track record with Kickstarters anyway, but just absolutely beautiful looking, and you know that you're going to get an absolutely beautiful comic out of that as well. It just seems absolutely mad, absolutely mental. The year 2184, Earth is no more than a brown and grey desert of mutants, robot armies, and a single drunken demigod named Hercules. Just amazing. Utterly brilliant. Also, the 77 comic, I spotted this the other day, a brand new retro anthology, a love letter to the comics that made us, with new talent and creators from your childhood. And, it's got 31 days to go at time of recording, and absolutely smashed it. It had a goal of just under $4,000, and it's well over the $4,000 mark now. I noticed wee bits and bobs about this, little bits of art and stuff that were going up as well. I don't really know much about this, to be honest, but it looks really, really interesting. Give it a look, the 77 comic. And that is it for all the Kickstarters as well. If you have a Kickstarter or you have a project or anything you would like to have reviewed or like somebody to have a look at, then give us a shout. You can find me on Twitter at URAMYX at Uramix. Or you can contact me on That Comic Smell podcast at That Comic Smell. But yeah, some amazing, amazing comics going on just now. Just utterly unbelievable. And I've actually got a number of comics lined up to review as well. So really looking forward to talking about some amazing comics this year. And that is it for Small Press this time. Go out there and go and enjoy some comics. And I'll see you next time. Bye for now.
We are back. Bet you're happy to hear us now.
More of us.
More of us. Right, so we've got a couple of guests to mention, but we're going to first talk about Macc Pow 2020, which we will be there this year in Macclesfield.
We
as
will
per
be there.
Usual. There's a list of guests. So,
have I got my usual table?
Possibly.
Yay.
We will see. So Lou Stringer, Emmeline Pigeon, Lucy Sullivan, David Leach, Joe Was, Charlie Adler, Jacob Phillips, Sean Phillips, Leah Moore, John Repion, Rachel Smith, Nick Brokenshire, Zoom Rockman, Roger Langridge, Andrew Wildman, Nigel Parkinson and Nika, and Laura Howell will be there.
Whoop, whoop, whoop.
So there's quite a lot of guests there.
There's a lot of guests.
So, yeah, if you're tempted by that, 27th of June at Macclesfield.
Mm-hmm.
And also...
And, of course, you'll meet us, which is
top billing, the Lakes International Comic Art Festival podcast.
That's it, yeah.
Oh, there we go.
There we
top
are. That's us. Yeah. You have to pay to get our signature.
Yeah. Start queuing now.
Pictures with Nikki and Ian.
And also from the announcement of Terry Moore last episode, which we broke, some other guests lined up for this year's Lakes International
Comic
Festival.
Art Festival.
Obviously, again, top billing, the Lakes International Comic Art Festival podcast.
Of course, we'll be there.
There's some of the usuals, but some new ones definitely going to be there. Mr. Charlie Adlard, obviously. Stephen Appleby. Hannah Berry. Neil Cameron. Gemma Correll, who'll be there, who we want to get on the show closer to the time at some point. Robert Days. Francis de Hersney, isn't he?
Sorry, what was that? What? Sorry, should we get back to that one?
That's better. Inko, Mark Jackson, Nicola Jennings, Lou McKeever, Metafrog, who I'll be on the show.
I love them. They've
before
been
March
really
time,
helpful
roughly.
with advice for me. They've been lovely.
Benoit Peters, Sean Phillips, Mike Ramirez, Zoom Rockman, Martin Wilson, Lucy Sullivan, Brian Talbot, Mary Talbot, Toybox, and Emma Viacelli is returning this year.
Yay!
And there's going to be a load more announced down the line, and we'll let you know as soon as we know. Because that's like what we're doing. It.
That is what we are.
That's what we're doing. It.
What we do.
What we're doing. It.
In it. Was that your southern accent again? Because it was awful.
No, that was my hard boy accent.
Hard boy?
Yeah. What?
Nothing, love. Yeah, don't do it again.
All right, fair play. So, as I say, today is Ghibli Day, as I said earlier. It's also the day we are now not in the EU, but we're not going to talk about that.
Do you know the world didn't end, so I think we'll be fine.
No, we left the EU, but we brought Japan into our hearts.
Yes, you see, it's got to be a silver lining.
I'm sure.
Ghibli Day, yeah.
It's got to be a silver lining. What I did find, I'm going to go talk about Ghibli again now. What I did find funny is all the Americans who got upset that they weren't getting. Sorry. You've
got, someone's got the distribution rights out there. You need to go take it up with them.
Go and complain to them.
It's not our fault.
It's not Ghibli's fault.
And it's not ours.
It's not ours. Don't blame. I don't know why we were blaming us.
I don't know. They were, all of them.
All of them blaming us.
It's them again.
Okay, well, thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.
This has been a slightly longer show with all the clips.
Sorry.
And Pete talking away and everything. We'll be back on the 15th of Feb.
Day after Valentine's.
I do believe we have our guest lined up, but I still have to get 100% confirmation.
Okay.
Then say we have
Day after Valentine's.
Yes.
What are you going to do for me?
I have no idea.
Okay. I'm not seeing Sonic the Hedgehog at the film.
Why?
No. Don't take me to see Sonic.
We need to talk about the
I don't
animation.
want to see. Might just be you on your own on the 15th.
Fair play. Thank you very much for listening. Check us out at Comic Art Fest Pod on Twitter, comicartpodcast.uk on the websites.
You're trying to think what they are, aren't you? I can see your little eyes are like, oh God, can I remember them all?
It's at the end recorded. I don't even know why I'm bothering.
I don't know, but you've got into it now. Now you've got to do the last one now. Come on, you can remember it. Facebook.
That's it. Oh, Facebook is Comic Art Podcast. It's very easy, actually.
There you go.
Thank you very much for listening. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. Find out more about the festival at comicartfestival.com. Find out more about the show and how to contact us at comicartpodcast.uk. Find us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. Music composed by Pop Noir.